Experimental battleship saves colony. From alien invaders, the sun set over the dome-covered fields of Proxima Colony, painting the sky in shades of crimson and gold that still felt alien to many residents even after 15 years. Dr. Hannah Kim stood at her observation post rubbing tired eyes as she checked the deep space scanner readings for the third time. The anomalies had first appeared 3 days ago, faint energy signatures that shouldn't exist this far from any known civilization. "You're still here." The voice belonged to her assistant Tay, who carried 2 steaming cups. "I brought you some coffee." Hannah accepted the cup gratefully. "Something's not right with these readings. Either our equipment is malfunctioning or there's something out there moving faster than should be possible." Across the colony, in the orbital docking station, Commander June Park floated through the central corridor of the UES Poseidon. The experimental battleship represented humanity's greatest technological achievement, a vessel designed not just for exploration but for defense, though most considered that aspect purely theoretical. No one really expected threats this far, from Earth. "Systems check complete, Commander," reported Engineer Daeho, his tablet displaying a complex series of diagnostics. "Quantum shields are holding at 98% efficiency. The test firing of the plasma cannons exceeded expectations." Park nodded, allowing himself a small smile of satisfaction. The Poseidon had been his life for the past 3 years, from blueprint to reality. "Good work. I want another simulation run before we—" His communication device chirped urgently. "Commander Park," came the voice of Admiral Song from Colony Headquarters. "Report to command immediately. We may have a situation." The situation room buzzed, with tense energy when Park arrived. Digital displays showed tactical maps of the Proxima system, with several blinking red dots approaching from the outer reaches. "Dr. Kim," Admiral Song gestured to the astronomer, "explain what we're looking at." Hannah pointed to the display. "These objects appeared at the edge of our detection range yesterday. Initially, I thought they might be cometary bodies, but they've changed course multiple times, which means they're under powered flight. And they're fast. Impossibly fast." "How fast?" Park asked, studying the trajectory plots. "At current velocity, they'll reach Proxima B in approximately 72 hours. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Admiral Song straightened her uniform jacket. "We've attempted communication on all standard frequencies, no response." "What about Earth?" someone asked. "We've sent emergency transmissions, but at this distance..." She didn't need to finish. Help, if it came at all, would arrive months too late. "The Poseidon was designed for this," Park said quietly. "Not just research and exploration, but defense. One experimental ship against unknown vessels that can travel at speeds we've only theorized about?" Technical Director Young questioned skeptically. "We have no choice," Admiral Song replied. "Commander Park, ready your ship. Your orders are to intercept these objects at a safe distance from the colony. Attempt communication again. Gather intelligence. Do not engage unless absolutely necessary." As Park left for the launch bay, he caught up with Hannah in the corridor. "I need everything you have on these visitors," he said. Hannah handed him a data chip. "Energy readings, trajectory calculations, spectral analysis. Though that doesn't tell us much. There's something else." She hesitated. "The objects are emitting radiation patterns unlike anything in our databases. Whatever built these ships, June, it wasn't human technology." Park felt a chill despite the climate-controlled environment. 15 years ago, humanity had reached for the stars believing they were alone. The Proxima Colony represented their first tentative steps beyond the solar system. 8,000 brave souls building a new world. Now that world faced an unknown threat. "I'll need you on communications," Park said. "If anyone can figure out how to talk to them, it's you." Hannah nodded grimly. "I've already set up translation algorithms based on mathematical constants. If they're intelligent, there should be some common ground." The next 48 hours passed in a blur of preparation. The colony's limited defensive systems were activated. Non-essential personnel moved to underground shelters. The Poseidon's crew, all 35 of them, prepared for a mission none of them had ever truly expected to face. As Park settled into the command chair on the bridge, he looked at the determined faces around him. Chief Engineer Dae Ho at the EU. Reactor controls. Tactical Officer Mi-sun at weapons. Navigator Jin carefully plotting their intercept course. All systems online, reported Dae Ho. Quantum shields at full capacity. Plasma cannons charged and ready, added Mi-sun, though her voice betrayed her nervousness. None of them had fired these weapons outside of simulations. Take us out, Park ordered. The docking clamps released with a muffled thud that resonated through the hull, and the Poseidon glided forward into the darkness of space. The journey to the intercept point took 26 hours. As they approached, the ship's sensors provided their first real look at what they faced. On screen, Park ordered. The main display flickered, then showed what appeared to be 5 spindle-shaped vessels, each roughly twice the size of the Poseidon. Their surfaces seemed to pulse with an inner light, shifting patterns flowing like liquid metal. Are they alive? Jin whispered. Scanning, said the science officer. Detecting both organic and mechanical components. These ships appear to be partly biological in nature. Open a channel, Park ordered. All frequencies, universal greeting protocol. For several tense minutes they broadcast the carefully crafted message of peace. Mathematical sequences, simple atomic structures, basic human biology, the same package humanity had been sending to the stars for generations. The response came, not as communication but action. One of the alien vessels detached from the group, accelerating toward Proxima's small moon where a research outpost housed 30 scientists. They're changing course, Mi-sun reported. Heading directly for outpost, Theta. Warn the outpost, Park ordered. Tell them to evacuate immediately. But the warning came too late. A beam of intense blue light extended from the alien ship, sweeping across the lunar surface. Where it touched, matter simply disappeared. The sensor officer's voice shook. Outpost Theta. It's gone, sir. No debris, no radiation signature, just gone. Park's hands tightened on the arms of his command chair. First contact had become first conflict, and the experimental battleship now stood as the only defense between the aliens and 8,000 colonists who had nowhere to run. Battle stations, he ordered quietly. Position us between those ships and the colony. The Poseidon shuddered as another energy blast glanced off its quantum shields. On the bridge, warning lights flashed and alarms blared as Commander Jun Park gripped his chair to stay upright. Shields holding at 67%, reported Engineer Dae Ho, his fingers dancing across the control panel to reroute power. Sweat beaded on his forehead despite the ship's cooling systems working overtime. Return fire, Park ordered, his voice calm despite the chaos. Target the smaller vessels first. Tactical Officer Mi-sun lined up the shot with practiced precision that belied her lack of actual combat experience. The Poseidon's main plasma cannon discharged, sending a brilliant purple beam slicing through space. It struck one of the alien scout ships, which twisted unnaturally before breaking apart in a silent explosion. Direct hit. Mi-sun couldn't hide her surprise. None of them had expected their weapons to be effective against technology so advanced. The remaining alien vessels shifted formation immediately, their fluid-like hulls rippling as if in pain or anger. 3 smaller scout ships broke away from the main vessels, accelerating toward the Poseidon from different vectors. Evasive maneuvers, Park ordered. Pattern Delta. Navigator Jin responded instantly, sending the experimental battleship into a corkscrew dive that would have been impossible for any conventional spacecraft. The Poseidon's revolutionary propulsion system allowed it to change direction without the limitations of inertia, though the crew still felt the strain as artificial gravity struggled to compensate. 2 of the alien scouts overshot their target, but the third adjusted with impossible precision, matching the Poseidon's maneuvers exactly. How are they doing that? Jin muttered, trying another evasive pattern. They're predicting our movements, Park realized. Switch to manual control. No patterns, Jin. Fly by instinct. As the battle unfolded in space, Dr. Hana Kim watched from the colony's command center, her face illuminated by the tactical display. Every colonist who could be spared was working frantically to boost their minimal planetary defenses or prepare evacuation protocols, though everyone knew there was nowhere to run. "The Poseidon is drawing them away from the colony," said Governor Su-Min Lee, her usual political poise replaced by grim determination. "But for how long?" Hana's eyes never left the display. "Jun knows what he's doing," she said, hoping she sounded more confident than she felt. "And the Poseidon is unlike anything humanity has ever built." Back on the battleship, Park had managed to position them behind one of Proxima's smaller moons, buying precious moments to regroup. "Damage report," he ordered. Chief Engineer Daeho looked up from his station, his face smudged with smoke from an overloaded circuit. "Shields at 43%. Primary plasma cannon still operational, but the cooling systems are struggling. 2 more shots at full power before we risk overheating." "And the aliens?" Mi-sun checked her readings. "We've destroyed 2 scout ships. The others have regrouped with the main vessels. They appear to be communicating. The energy patterns between them have intensified." "They're planning something," Park said, more to himself than to the crew. He studied the tactical display, noting the position of the alien vessels relative to the colony. "Why haven't they just bypassed us? With their technology, they could easily overwhelm the colony's defenses." "Maybe they see us as the primary threat," suggested Jin. "Or maybe they're curious," said Science Officer Yoon-ji, speaking up for the first time since the battle began. "Look at these readings. Every time we use our shields or weapons, there's a spike in their scanning activity. They're studying us." A chill ran down Park's spine. Being analyzed by an alien intelligence during combat wasn't just unsettling, it was potentially catastrophic. "If they adapted to the Poseidon's capabilities, we need to end this quickly," he decided. "Mi-sun, prepare all remaining weapons. Jin, plot a course that will bring us around the moon at maximum acceleration." "Sir?" Jin looked uncertain. "They'll be waiting for us." "Exactly, but they won't be expecting this." Park opened a channel to engineering. "Daeho, I need you to overload the quantum shield generators on my mark. Controlled overload focused forward." There was a pause. "Sir, that could burn out the entire system." "Better than burning up the colony. Can you do it?" "Yes, sir. But we'll have no shields afterward. Then we better not miss." Park took a deep breath. "All hands, brace for combat maneuvers. We're going to hit them with everything we've got." As the Poseidon swung around the moon, the alien vessels moved to intercept, just as Park had predicted. The 5 biomechanical ships arranged themselves in a formation that seemed almost ceremonial, their weapons charging with eerie blue light. "Now," Park shouted. The Poseidon surged forward, its quantum shields flaring brighter than a small star as Daeho channeled all their power into a concentrated front. The alien weapons discharged, and for a heart-stopping moment the bridge crew thought they had miscalculated badly. The blue energy beam struck the overloaded shield and bent, redirected by the quantum field's distortion. 2 of the alien vessels were caught in their own weapons' fire, their hulls rupturing in bizarre slow motion as if the very fabric of their being was unraveling. "Fire main cannon," Park ordered. Mi-sun needed no further instruction. The Poseidon's plasma cannon discharged its remaining energy in one devastating blast, tearing through a 3rd alien vessel before the system shut down from overheating. For a moment, triumph surged through the bridge. Then reality reasserted itself as the damage reports flooded in. "Shields completely offline," Daeho reported. "Main cannon non-functional, secondary weapons at minimal capacity." "And the aliens?" Park asked, dreading the answer. Mi-sun's voice was hollow. 2 main vessels destroyed, 3 damaged but operational. And, "Sir, we're detecting more objects entering the system, larger ones." Park stared at the tactical display in disbelief. The 5 ships they had faced were merely an advance force. The main alien fleet was arriving. Dozens of vessels, each dwarfing the ones they had barely managed to damage. "Time to intercept?" he asked quietly. "At current velocity." 48 hours. Park opened a channel to the colony. "Governor Lee, Dr. Kim, we've bought some time, but not victory. The Poseidon needs repairs and we're facing reinforcements. On the display, Hana's face appeared, determination hardening her features. Then we have 48 hours to come up with a new plan. Get back to the colony, Jun. We're not giving up yet. As the damaged Poseidon limped back toward Proxima B, Park looked at his exhausted crew. Ordinary men and women who had just fought humanity's first interstellar battle. They had proven the experimental battleship could hold its own against technologies beyond their understanding. But the real test was yet to come, and 8,000 colonists were counting on them to find a way to survive. The emergency council chamber fell silent as Commander June Park finished his report. The holographic display in the center of the room showed the approaching alien fleet, 17 larger vessels now, their strange biomechanical forms pulsing with energy that the colony's sensors could barely comprehend. 44 hours until they reach orbit, Park concluded, his voice hoarse from exhaustion. The battle had left him with a gash across his forehead, hastily bandaged by the medical team. The Poseidon damaged 3 of their advanced ships, but at significant cost. Governor Su Min Lee stood at the head of the table, her weathered face showing the strain of leadership in crisis. Around her sat the colony's department heads, agriculture, medicine, security, science, along with key military personnel. Their expressions ranged from shock to grim determination. "What are our options?" Lee asked, addressing the room but looking directly at Park Chief Engineer Dae Ho, who had come down from the Poseidon for the meeting, spoke first. "Repairs to the battleship are underway, but the quantum shield generators suffered catastrophic damage. We can restore perhaps 30% capacity in the time we have." "Not enough to withstand another direct assault," Park added quietly. "Evacuation?" suggested Medical Director Youngmi, though her tone made clear she knew the answer. "Security." Chief Han shook his head. "The colony has 16 short-range shuttles. Even if we packed them beyond capacity, we could evacuate less than 1,000 people. And where would they go? We have no other habitable worlds within reach." The room lapsed into heavy silence again, the weight of their situation pressing down on everyone present. 8,000 colonists, scientists, engineers, farmers, children, all facing an enemy they couldn't understand and couldn't escape. Dr. Hana Kim had been quiet throughout the meeting, her focus divided between the tactical display and her tablet, where complex algorithms ran continuously. Now she looked up, dark circles under her eyes betraying her lack of sleep. "I've been analyzing their communication patterns," she said, "both from the ships we encountered and the transmissions between the approaching fleet. I think I've found something." All eyes turned to her as she transferred her data to the main display. Strange waveforms appeared pulsing in complex patterns. "These aren't just signals," Hana explained. "They're more like thought patterns. These aliens don't communicate the way we do. They share information instantaneously across their network, but there's structure to it, mathematics. And mathematics is universal." "You understand what they're saying?" Lee asked, leaning forward. "Not entirely, but I'm beginning to grasp concepts." Hana manipulated the display, highlighting certain patterns. "This sequence keeps repeating whenever they scan our colony. I believe it translates roughly to resource extraction, or harvesting." A chill swept through the room. "They don't see us as a threat or even as intelligent beings to communicate with," Hana continued. "They see our colony as resources to be harvested, water, minerals, possibly even organic material. That's why they didn't pursue the Poseidon. More aggressively, Park realized, we're not the target, we're just in the way." Governor Lee's hands clenched into fists on the table surface. "We need more than understanding, we need a strategy." Park stared at the alien communication patterns, an idea forming. He turned to Dae Ho. "The Poseidon's reactor, the quantum field generator that powers the shields. What would happen if we reconfigured it to emit a massive electromagnetic pulse?" The engineer's eyes widened. "Theoretically, it could generate an EMP powerful enough to disrupt electrical systems for thousands of kilometers, but," he hesitated, "it would completely drain our power reserves. We'd be defenseless for at least 20 minutes while the systems rebooted." "If these alien ships are partly biological," Park continued, An EMP might disrupt not just their technology, but their very means of coordination. Like shutting down their nervous system, Hana said, catching on. The communication patterns would collapse. It's too risky, Security Chief Han objected. If it doesn't work, we've lost our only defensive capability. If we do nothing, we lose everything, Park countered. He turned to Hana. Could you use what you've learned about their communications to draw them into a specific position? Hana thought for a moment. I could create a false communication pattern, something that would read as a high-value resource concentration. They'd move to investigate. Here, Park said, pointing to a spot on the tactical display where Proxima B's powerful magnetic field was strongest near the upper atmosphere. If we position the Poseidon here and trigger the pulse, the planet's magnetosphere would amplify the effect. Governor Lee studied the plan, then looked around the table. The fate of our colony may rest on this gambit. I need to know. Is this our best option? One by one, the department heads nodded grimly. Then make it happen, Lee ordered. Every person in this colony has a role to play now. If we're making our stand, we do it together. The next 36 hours passed in a blur of frantic activity. The colony transformed from a peaceful scientific outpost to a fortress preparing for siege. Engineers worked alongside the Poseidon's crew to modify the battleship's reactor core. Hana and her team refined their false communication signal, testing it against the patterns they had decoded. Throughout the colony, people prepared in their own ways. Families moved into the underground shelters. Medical teams readied field hospitals. Those with combat training joined security forces, while others volunteered for emergency response teams. Park found Hana in her lab late on the second night, slumped over her workstation. She startled awake when he placed a hand on her shoulder. You should rest, he said gently. Tomorrow will demand everything from all of us. She rubbed her eyes. I keep thinking about Earth. How we left believing we were expanding humanity's reach to the stars. Now we might be making humanity's last stand. Not the last, Park said firmly. Whether we succeed or fail, Earth will know what happened here. They'll be warned. Small comfort for 8,000 souls, Hana replied, but she managed a tired smile. The signal is ready. I've embedded it with patterns that should read as extremely valuable resources, enough to make them adjust their approach vector, or Sir nodded. The Poseidon's modifications are complete. Dae-ho says the EMP will be the strongest ever generated by human technology. After that, he trailed off. After that, we fight with whatever we have left. Hana finished. As dawn broke over the colony the next morning, the alien fleet appeared as bright points of light in the sky, visible even through Proxima B's atmosphere. The Poseidon, its battle scars still evident across its hull, lifted off from the colony spaceport for what might be its final mission. On the bridge, Commander Park looked at his crew, volunteers all, knowing the risks they faced. Whatever happens, today, he told them, you've already made history. The first humans to encounter alien life, the first to engage them in battle, and now, the first to attempt to communicate through action rather than words. He opened a channel to the colony command center. Governor Lee and Dr. Kim appeared on screen. We're in position, Park reported. Beginning the operation on your signal. Signal transmission active, Hana replied, her voice steady despite everything. The alien fleet is responding. They're adjusting course toward your position. Park watched the tactical display as the alien vessels moved. Drawn by Hana's carefully crafted lure, the massive ships glided into the precise area where Proxima's magnetic field would amplify the Poseidon's desperate counterstrike. All vessels in optimal position, said Tactical Officer Misun. EMP charged and ready. Park took a deep breath, knowing that in the next moments they would either save the colony or lose everything. May our gambit pay off, he said quietly. Initiate pulse. Now. The first rays of Proxima Centauri's light crept over the horizon, painting the colony's protective dome in shades of deep crimson. Inside the command center, Dr. Hana Kim watched the main display with her heart pounding against her ribs. Alien fleet hung in the upper atmosphere like strange pulsing jellyfish. 17 massive vessels surrounded by smaller scout ships, all drawn to the false resource signature she had created. "They're in position," she reported, her voice barely above a whisper. Governor Sumin Lee nodded grimly. "Signal the Poseidon." On the bridge of the experimental battleship, Commander Jun Park received the transmission with a single nod to his communications officer. The Poseidon hovered at the edge of Proxima B's magnetosphere, its hull shimmering as it maintained position against the powerful currents of charged particles. "All hands, prepare for EMP discharge," Park ordered. "Reactor to maximum output." "Chief." Engineer Daeho's fingers flew across his console, bypassing safety protocols they had never imagined needing to override. Warning lights flashed across every station as the quantum reactor core began to glow with increasing intensity. "Power levels at 120% of designed maximum," Daeho reported, his voice tight with tension. "Approaching critical threshold." "Shields?" Park asked, though he already knew the answer. "Will collapse completely upon discharge. All systems will shut down for approximately 17 minutes while emergency protocols execute a complete restart." 17 minutes. They would be completely defenseless for 17 minutes against an enemy that could vaporize matter at the molecular level. "Sir," Navigator Jin interrupted, pointing to the tactical display. "The aliens are launching something toward the colony." Park leaned forward, studying the readings. Several smaller objects had detached from the main fleet, accelerating toward the surface with alarming speed. "Analysis?" he snapped. Science Officer Yunji shook her head in frustration. "Consistent with their harvester probes based on previous scans. Likely the first wave of their resource extraction." There was no more time for deliberation. Park opened a channel to the colony. "The aliens are launching harvesters. We're initiating the EMP now." He paused for just a moment, making eye contact with each member of his bridge crew. "Whatever happens, it's been my honor to serve with you." Park gave the final command. "Discharge pulse." At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then, a shockwave of invisible energy erupted from the Poseidon's core, spreading outward in all directions. As it encountered Proxima's magnetic field, the pulse amplified exponentially, just as they had hoped. The effect was immediately visible as ripples of blue-white energy cascaded across the planet's upper atmosphere. When the pulse struck the alien fleet, the effect was dramatic. The biomechanical vessels convulsed as if in pain, their fluid-like hulls rippling violently. The smaller scout ships tumbled out of formation, their propulsion systems failing instantly. Even the massive command vessels drifted sideways, their lights flickering and dying. But the Poseidon paid the price for its attack. Every system on the ship shut down simultaneously. Emergency lighting flickered weakly as backup power tried to maintain life support. The bridge was plunged into near darkness, the only illumination coming from the glow of Proxima and the disabled alien fleet outside the viewports. 17 minutes, Park said quietly into the silence. "Let's hope that's enough time." In the colony command center, Hana watched in astonishment as the alien ships floundered in the upper atmosphere. "It worked!" someone shouted. Cheers erupted around her, but Hana's eyes remained fixed on the tactical display. "The pulse affected them, but they're not destroyed," she cautioned. "Look, some of the smaller vessels are already showing signs." "Recovery. Their biological components must provide some natural resilience." Governor Lee activated the colony-wide communication system. "All defense teams to positions. The EMP was successful, but we need to prepare for possible ground incursion. The aliens may still send harvesters." Outside the colony perimeter, security teams took up positions behind hastily constructed barricades. They carried a mix of standard colonization tools repurposed as weapons and the few actual firearms available to the security force. Against the technology they had witnessed, these seemed pitifully inadequate, but they were all that stood between the aliens and the civilian population sheltering underground. Back on the Poseidon, Park and his crew could only wait in tense silence as the emergency restart protocol slowly brought systems back online. Through the viewports, they could see the alien fleet beginning to recover, lights flickering back to life one by one. "How much longer?" Park asked, checking his old-fashioned wristwatch. 9 minutes until minimal power, Deho replied. 12 until weapons might be operational. They'll recover before we do, Tactical Officer Misun said quietly. Park moved to the viewport, studying the alien vessels with narrowed eyes. Maybe not all of them at the same rate. Look, the command ships are recovering faster, but the smaller vessels are still struggling. He was right. The massive ships at the center of the alien formation were regaining power more quickly, their hulls pulsing with renewed energy. But the majority of the fleet remained dormant or only partially functional. If we target the command ships when our weapons come back online, Misun began. Exactly, Park finished her thought. Cut off the head, and the body might falter. The minutes crawled by with excruciating slowness. On the planet's surface, the first alien harvester probes that had launched before the EMP struck had crashed harmlessly into the wilderness hundreds of kilometers from the colony. But new launchers were powering up on the recovered vessels. 5 minutes, Deho reported. Park took his command chair again. As soon as weapons are online, target the largest vessel with everything we've got. Don't wait for shields or navigation. Sir, Jin spoke up hesitantly. How do we know which one is their command ship? Park turned to Science Officer Yoonji. The communication patterns Dr. Kim decoded. Which vessel generates the most signals? Yoonji checked her partially rebooted console. The central vessel, the one with the spiral configuration on its hull. That's our target. In the colony command center, Hana was reaching the same conclusion. They communicate in a hierarchy, she explained to Governor Lee, pointing to the patterns on her display. Everything flows from that central ship. If we disrupt it, relay that information to the Poseidon, Lee ordered, assuming they can receive transmissions. The restart protocol on the battleship reached its final phase. Systems came online one by one: life support, communications, navigation, and finally, weapons. Still without shields, the Poseidon was vulnerable but not helpless. Weapons online, Misun reported. Targeting systems at 70% efficiency. Target locked on central vessel, Park confirmed. Fire when ready. The Poseidon's plasma cannons discharged with a surge of power that momentarily dimmed all other systems. 3 brilliant beams converged on the alien command ship, striking it precisely where Hana's analysis had indicated its communication nexus would be located. The effect was immediate and unexpected. Not only did the command vessel shudder under the impact, but ripples of disruption spread throughout the alien fleet. Ships that had been recovering suddenly went dark again. Others began to move erratically, as if confused. Again, Park ordered. Second volley struck the command ship, this time penetrating its outer hull. Strange energy cascaded across its surface, and the vessel began to list sideways in the atmosphere. The other ships, Jin reported with amazement. They're retreating. It was true. As the command structure collapsed, the alien fleet began to withdraw, moving away from Proxima B's atmosphere in what appeared to be disarray. Some vessels crashed into each other, while others accelerated wildly in random directions. They're not used to operating independently, Hana explained over the now functioning communication channel. You've broken their network. They function as a collective, not as individuals. Through the viewports of the Poseidon, the crew watched in astonishment as the alien fleet scattered. Some ships managed to achieve escape velocity, disappearing into the depths of space. Others, more severely damaged, drifted into decaying orbits around Proxima B. We did it, Misun whispered, voicing what everyone was thinking but afraid to say aloud. Park didn't celebrate yet. Maintain battle stations. Track every vessel. This isn't over until they're all gone or neutralized. But as the hours passed, it became clear that the immediate threat had indeed passed. The Battle of Proxima, as it would later be called, had been won not through superior firepower, but through understanding the enemy's nature and exploiting their dependence on centralized command. As the Poseidon returned to the colony, cheers erupted from the crowd gathered outside the landing pad. Commander Park stood at attention as his crew disembarked. Each one met with embraces and tears of relief from the colonists they had saved. The experimental battleship had proved its worth beyond all expectations. Humanity had faced its first contact with alien life, hostile though it was, and survived. But as Park watched the celebration, he couldn't help but wonder if this victory was merely the beginning of a much larger conflict. 3 days after the battle, the skies above Proxima Colony still showed traces of the conflict. Debris from the destroyed alien vessels created brief, brilliant streaks as they burned up in the atmosphere, like shooting stars heralding humanity's unexpected victory. On the colony's eastern perimeter, where one of the smaller alien ships had crashed, teams worked tirelessly to secure the site. Commander June Park stood at the edge of the impact crater, the alien wreckage stretching before him like some strange, half-melted sculpture. Even damaged and powerless, the biomechanical craft had an unsettling beauty to it, flowing lines and materials that seemed to blur the boundary between technology and living tissue. "We've established a 50-meter safety perimeter," Security Chief Han reported, joining Park at the edge. "The science team is monitoring for radiation or biological contaminants, but so far, everything seems stable." Park nodded, his eyes never leaving the wreckage. The cost of their victory was etched on his face, dark circles under his eyes, a still healing cut across his forehead, and a weariness that went beyond physical exhaustion. "Any word from the other recovery teams?" he asked. 3. More crash sites have been secured. The governor has authorized preliminary analysis, but no direct contact until we better understand what we're dealing with. A sensible precaution, though Park doubted it would hold for long. Human curiosity was a powerful force, especially among the scientists who made up the majority of the colony's population. Already he could see researchers at the edge of the perimeter, their faces alight with an almost childlike excitement, despite the danger the aliens had posed just days ago. Back at the colony's main research facility, Dr. Hana Kim faced a different kind of challenge. The central laboratory had been transformed into an improper alien communication center, with screens displaying the decoded signal patterns they had captured during the battle. A team of linguists and computer specialists worked frantically to build on Hana's breakthrough, hoping to gain deeper insight into the aliens' nature and intentions. "This sequence keeps appearing throughout their transmissions," a young linguist pointed out, highlighting a complex pattern that pulsed across the main display. "It started appearing with increasing frequency after we damaged their command ship." Hana studied the pattern, something tugging at the back of her mind. "It's not a distress call," she said slowly. "The mathematical structure is wrong. It's more like a report or a warning." "Warning who?" asked Governor Sumin Lee, who had entered the lab silently, her usual formal attire replaced by practical work clothes. Like everyone in the colony, she had abandoned pretense in favor of function during the crisis. "That's what worries me," Hana admitted. "These transmissions were directed outward, toward a specific point in deep space, well beyond our solar system." The implication hung heavily in the air. The aliens they had fought might not be isolated invaders, but part of something larger, an advance force for a much more significant presence. The governor's weathered face showed no surprise, only a grim acceptance. "Then we need to learn everything we can as quickly as possible." Across the colony, life was gradually returning to some version of normal. Families emerged from the underground shelters, businesses reopened, and fields that had been abandoned during the battle were once again tended. But there was a new awareness in the colonists' movements, a constant glancing toward the sky. At the spaceport, the Poseidon rested in its docking bay, undergoing extensive repairs. Its once pristine hull was now scarred and burned, a testament to the battle it had survived. Chief Engineer Daeho supervised a team working on the quantum shield generators, their complex components spread across the hangar floor. "How bad is it?" Park asked, entering the hangar after his return from the crash site. Daeho looked up, wiping grease from his hands. "The good news is that the self-repairing hull technology is performing beyond expectations. Minor damage is already being corrected." He gestured toward the open panels near the ship's core. "The bad news is that the quantum generators were never designed for what we put them through. We're rebuilding almost from scratch." "How long?" 2 weeks for basic functionality, maybe a month for full combat readiness. Deho hesitated. If we had access to some of the alien technology, Park understood the engineer's unspoken request. I'll speak with the governor. We need the Poseidon operational as soon as possible, regardless of how we get there. That evening, a rare meeting took place in the colony's council chamber. Present were Governor Lee, Commander Park, Dr. Kim, and the heads of the various recovery teams. On the table between them lay several objects retrieved from the alien crash sites, strange devices of unknown purpose, fragments of the biomechanical, hull material, and most importantly, what appeared to be a data storage device. We've managed to access some of their stored information, reported Dr. Yu, the head of the technology recovery team. He activated a holographic display showing complex schematics and what might have been star charts. Their technological approach is such remarkable. They don't distinguish between hardware and software the way we do. Everything is integrated, circuitry, programming, even what appears to be genetically engineered biological components. Can we adapt any of it? The governor asked. With time, yes. Some of their power generation concepts alone could advance our technology by decades. Their approach to quantum field manipulation makes our best efforts look primitive. Park studied the star charts with growing concern. These navigation records, how far do they extend? Dr. Yu manipulated the display, zooming outward to show a vast section of the galaxy, far beyond our explored space. And these markings here, he highlighted several points, appear to be established colonies or outposts. Not colonies, Hana interrupted, her eyes widening as she recognized patterns similar to the communications she had decoded. These are harvesting operations, resource extraction points. Look at the dates attached to them. They've been systematically moving through this sector of space for what must be centuries. The implications were clear to everyone in the room. The aliens weren't random invaders. They were part of a vast, organized system of resource extraction that had now reached humanity's first extrasolar colony. There's something else, Dr. Yu said quietly, bringing up new data. These markers appeared in their most recent navigational updates, just before the battle. The display showed a new set of coordinates with strange symbols attached to them. Hana leaned forward, her face pale. Those are Earth's coordinates, and these symbols, and based on the patterns I've decoded, they designate a high-priority target. Silence fell over the room as the full weight of their discovery settled on them. The battle they had won wasn't just about saving their colony. It was potentially the first skirmish in a conflict that could threaten humanity's homeworld. Governor Lee was the first to speak. We need to warn Earth immediately. The next scheduled communication window opens in 3 days, Park said. But given what we've learned, I recommend we power up the long-range transmitter now, regardless of the energy cost. Agreed, the governor nodded. And we need to prepare a comprehensive data package. Everything we've learned about their technology, biology, and tactics. Earth needs to understand what they're facing. As the meeting continued into the night, plans were made not just for defense, but for humanity's future. The experimental battleship that had saved the colony would become the template for a new generation of vessels. The technology recovered from the alien wreckage would be reverse-engineered, studied, and improved upon. The Proxima colony, once a scientific outpost, would transform into humanity's first line of defense among the stars. In the weeks that followed, as the colony recovered and strengthened, Commander Park often found himself standing at the observation dome, watching the skies. The alien fleet had been defeated, but the message they had sent into deep space remained unanswered. Somewhere out there, beyond the reach of their sensors, something might be coming. Something that would make their recent battle seem like a mere prelude. But humanity would be ready. They had faced the unknown and survived. They had taken the first steps into a larger universe that contained both wonders and threats beyond imagination. And they had learned perhaps the most important lesson of all, that in the vast darkness between the stars, they were not alone. The Poseidon, once just an experimental vessel, now stood as a symbol of human ingenuity and courage. And as repairs, continued and improvements were made, incorporating what they had learned from their enemies. Park knew that they were writing not just the end of one story, but the beginning of another, one that would extend far beyond their small colony to shape the future of humanity among the stars.